right.
All right, everyone. We're gonna start our live stream right now. My name is Vase. I run the Left for the Vultures YouTube channel, and with me today is my co-host.
I am Geo, and I run the Headless Hammerhead YouTube channel.
Thank you guys for hanging out. We are just about 5 days away from the launch of Left for the Vultures, which is our tabletop role-playing game that we've created after many years of frustration with many other tabletop role-playing games. Gio, you and I, we've played dozens. I mean, when I say dozens, I mean it's probably close to over 100 tabletop role-playing games. I mean, maybe just name a few that we've played, but we've gone through them.
Yeah, we've
we
we've done Pathfinder, and of course Marvel Multiverse role playing game. We did uh, 13th Age. We've done obviously D and
Lancer,
D, several versions of D and D. Uh, uh, Alien
Lancer,
RPG, Delta Green, Call of Cthulhu. I mean, there's so many. And we've gotten
Warpboard.
some great ideas from every single game has given us some good ideas for things that we could add into our own game that would make it great. Every game has really great ideas but also flaws, and we have collected the better ideas, hopefully creating something amazing. I think it
And
is. I
when we
love it.
say better ideas, we're not trying to like bash other role playing game systems. Obviously, like for example, certain role playing game systems lean towards the more horror route, like Delta Green and Call of Cthulhu. So their mechanics and systems work better for that type of game. The game that we're making is a vengeance fantasy RPG. So when we say other games are, have things that have not worked out so well, well, we've adapted them to this game, but in a way that it works for the type of game that we're running. Something like Delta Green, the tabletop role playing game. They have certain mechanics that, like for example, the bonds mechanic, right? That will not play out very well in a draw steel campaign. The bonds definitely wouldn't be something that would work really well at all in draw steel, but they work well in a game like Left for the Vulture. So what we've done is we've taken mechanics from all these games that we love and adapted them in however they're going to work better in a game like the one that we're making.
Yeah, with slight adjustments, obviously, so that it works for this system. And I think it really, you've created something really fun. I mean, all of our group, and our group is always very honest, so everybody knows. Our group will tell you we've ended campaigns early that we didn't
Yeah.
like because either the story wasn't great or the system wasn't that great. And we give each other honest feedback, and pretty much everybody in our group thinks that this is the best role playing game they've played, including myself. I think it is perfect for us, So, uh,
For what
yeah,
we're doing. Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, there are people who like the cutesy stuff and and the funny stuff or whatever. We've played funny campaigns. I ran a funny campaign, and there's a place for that, a time and place for that, and there's people that gravitate towards something like that. But
Right.
for us, generally, and that's good for us as well, once in a while. But for us, I think the bulk of our playing, we enjoy something a little bit more brutal, dark, gritty. Um, but we also enjoy having characters because all of us put so much time and effort into our characters. We don't just have AI write a story for our character. We really sit down for hours, come up with a backstory for our character, their loved ones, stories for them, and create this entire world around each of our characters. So we care
Yeah.
about our characters. So something like the OSR for us doesn't really work because we get attached to our characters and we want to build a story arc over the course of a whole campaign with each of these characters. So that's what works for us, and this game makes it brutal but also allows you to have a character that you can use throughout an entire
And
campaign.
when we say we like making backstories for our characters, we're not talking about like there's a trope, right? There's a trope in tabletop role playing games where someone let's say they approach a vendor for their own role-playing game or whatever, and the person goes, "Oh man, you have this really great idea for my character," and they hand like the person like this multi page backstory that's like 10 pages long for the character. That's not what we're talking about. Like
Yeah.
we want characters to have a backstory, but we don't want it to be overwhelming, in the way that nobody likes. Like there's game masters don't want to read a 10-page backstory for a character.
Yeah.
But
And
with Left for the
stories,
Vultures, we encourage players to make their backstory.
yeah. And
In
stories don't
fact,
need to,
that's what makes the game, right?
it is the main aspect of a character within Left for the Vultures. In fact, in the character creation chapter, that's how you started. The most important part of creating a character is asking and answering that question: why are they here? Why are they still here? Because in Left for the Vultures, being a vengeance role playing game, your character, the Revenant, is basically coming back from a near death experience or from actually being killed or losing everything or whatever. And that is a question you need to answer when creating a characters. What are they after? What brought them to this?
Yeah.
Because in other role playing games, basically, I was thinking this morning, like, when we discuss this tonight, it's going to be interesting because like D&D, when we started playing D&D, we didn't think about that aspect of it. Like my wizard, he spent his entire youth locked in a tower studying books to learn the magic. And
Mhm.
then one day he just decided, let me go adventuring. And he ends up in a tavern, meets these other people, and they go adventuring for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
But in Left for the Vultures, that reason is what starts off your character creation.
It's what sets it off. And on purpose in this game, I decided not to have any kind of currency, right? So like I thought that having some kind of a currency unit where people bought equipment or swords, weapons, armor, whatever, um, as minor as it might seem, um, it has such a big impact in the driving force for characters. And it's something that you don't really think about, right? Like it really is such a major driving force, and you don't think about it at all. Like, all right, so you have a currency system and people are buying a full plate. I know we have a player in our Wednesday group who always wants to end up getting a full plate armor for their character in 5th edition. Every freaking time he wants to get a full plate armor so he's untouchable, right? But like, to get a full plate armor in 5th edition, you need to raise over 1,000 gold pieces. So how do you do that? Well, the only way to do that is to go adventuring. And so you go on these adventures just for the sake of gold. So in the end, your characters are driven by one motive every single time, no matter what. Every 5th edition, every OSR character is driven by one motive, and that is greed.
Yep.
Does that make them good people? They call themselves heroes, right? They're heroes, quote unquote. But are they? If they're really like heroes, why are they constantly searching for more gold to buy more stuff? Are they really good guys? Are they really heroes, right? I didn't even want to have that question be in my game at all. So I said, let's just get rid of that. There's no purchasing of equipment. There's no purchasing of stuff.
Yeah, not just
And
that,
I
but
think
I
that
think
really
we
made a
mentioned
huge difference.
famously that an episode of a very popular show where the entire session almost was spent shopping. And really, for what?
Yeah, that turned out well.
Yeah, like um it wastes a lot of time on
Mhm.
minutia, really, because okay, I want to buy a bag of holding, or oh, I want to get the ring of invisibility or whatever. And for what? You know what I mean? I, the story itself, um being driven by vengeance, is so much more compelling, I think. If
Yeah.
you think about it, and I started seeing this in your Yishuzu campaign, actually, where we played on Pathfinder, um, and where I created the character that basically he was a sailor and he had a daughter, and they were sailing on his ship one day and got caught in some storm. The daughter fell overboard and disappeared, and then he wanted to spend the rest of his life searching for her. He ended up getting caught in another storm. because of this obsessive search, and that is his vengeance, that is his drive. It's not really for vengeance, but to find his daughter is that drive for him. And
Yep.
he ends up getting caught in a tempest, and he becomes a ghost trapped in time, and that's was the central theme of my character. And so he could manipulate dice and mess with time and stuff. And I thought, I mean, people love this character. I love this character. You know, I
Yeah.
wanted to write comic books around this character because I love them so much. And I think that's what your game creates is these unique characters that people really care about, that you can continue writing stories and imagining what they do and where this drive takes them, you know.
Yeah, what's funny now that you mentioned the Pathfinder 2 game, right? So the one thing with a game like that, right? Like you had your character that had this motivation, but you were almost fighting against the system because specifically Pathfinder 2, um, the way that the math works in that system, it's so overly tuned in terms of its balance, right? Where if you're a certain level, you have to have a certain level weapon. So if you're I'm just making up numbers, but if you're level 5, you have to have a +1 weapon, or you're not going to be as efficient as a typical level 5 character, right? So it's almost like you're required to have a certain level of weapon or armor or whatever, in order to be functional at the level that you're at. If you're going up in levels just on your own in your character and you don't have those weapons at those additional levels, you're not going to survive. You're not going to make it through. And that's kind of crazy to think about, right? Like the game is built in a way where equipment plays such a major role that if you don't have the right equipment, you're not going to survive at the level that you're in, you know? And I think with something like a Pathfinder 2, right, where your character has this motivation, makes for a great story. But then the system is working against you in that because it's telling you, well, now that you've reached level 6, you need to go find a +1 or a +2 weapon or a +2 armor or whatever. And so now you're almost distracted, in your character's motivation, in your character's backstory, and all that stuff. So it's interesting to see that, specifically in a game like Pathfinder 2. I think that's probably one of the worst offenders in that.
And I think that also, one of the really cool things about Left for the Vultures, comparing it to Pathfinder as an example, and many games have this issue as well. If your goal is to play a character like the one I was just talking about that I had, is the limitations that some of the mechanics have. For example, classes, right? So for this character, although Pathfinder has a robust abilities and powers system, there you still have to pick a class, and that kind of limits you sometimes. And the
Yeah.
closest thing I could find to make this character was witch, and so it was really interesting because again I did have to fight against the system rules and the system itself, because my character was a witch, but he wasn't a witch in the traditional sense. And it seemed to me like anybody who made a witch character had to play what the creators of this game imagined a witch character
Hmm.
to be. And I was kind of trying to use the witch class in a unique way that was a little bit different, where I wasn't really a witch, I was a ghost. And I did have a familiar, which my familiar ended up being the ghost of my daughter trapped in time. And so I played around with that. But the a lot of the things within the system as we played that called for um for my character to complete certain things, like I had to do rituals and do certain I don't remember all the specifics because it was a while back,
Yeah,
but
yeah, it's been a bit.
I had to do some rituals, I had to do some things that were very witchy, that did not fall in line with my character's
Hmm.
theme, but I had to do it because that was part of the class. And in Left for the Vultures, because you have no classes, it really opens it up to create a really unique character. Every single character can be so different, even because there are no classes, and you have access to every single ability. You're not limited by spell levels, you're not limited by any of that kind of stuff. You can have any ability in the book whenever you want.
Yeah, so with Left for the Vultures, let's go ahead and get started with talking about a few of the mechanics in the game, right? So how does the main game the resolution. A lot of people that are game designers, they talk about the main resolution mechanic or whatever. So with Left for the Vultures, the main resolution mechanic is just the damage roll, because there's no attack roll, there are no skill. I specifically didn't want to do any skill rolls or anything like that. So most of the die rolls are going to happen in combat, and most combat rolls, specifically if you're doing an attack action, you're going to be rolling just damage, right? So, how does that work, Gio?
And this is what makes combat so exciting in Left for the Vultures is that because it's fast and it's tactical. So damage, you don't have to roll to hit. So there's no calculating, oh, did I hit or whatever, or DACO or whatever, what's your AC? You just roll your damage. When you swing your sword, you just roll the damage, and then you compare that to the target's defense score. And then very simple subtraction, you know. Uh,
Yep.
if you roll 10 damage and the defender's defense score is 5, they take 5 damage
Yep.
against
So
their
if you have a
well,
weapon that does 2d6, you roll 2d6. If one of them rolls maximum, then you get to roll that again and add it to the total. And you just keep doing that because there's exploding dice. So like you said, there's you do your total damage and then you subtract it from the target's defense. Now, if you're casting magic, you bypass that defense and you do your damage directly to the character, which
right.
is pretty brutal, right?
Which sounds very strong. So then everybody might wonder, well, if everybody could wear every armor and will use every weapon, why wouldn't everybody be a magic user to bypass the target's defenses? But magic has a cost. Where it's funny, I made a meme today that we're gonna post tomorrow in our social medias where I say magic in this game, or I said them, magic is rainbows shooting out of your fingertips, and us, magic is freaking summoning the corpse or the carcass of a young calf that just sits there and stares at you with its dead eyes and
Yep.
freaks you out and smells and affects everybody in the combat, and it's so different.
Yeah, and that's what that's actually a spell in the game, which is hilarious. It's called a carcass, and you bring up a carcass of a calf, and it just stares in the eyes of all your enemies, just like, which is great. I love the idea of it.
But yeah, and it
So
sounds
yeah,
powerful as well. But at the
mhm,
same time, the caster, there's a cost, to using and to learning this magic because they're dark, forbidden arts. And so your character does suffer some consequences for delving into this
mhm.
dark art.
Yeah, and that's one of the main aspects of the game is everything almost has a cost, right? So, we mentioned it last time, like, oh, why, what would stop someone from just picking the best armor and the best weapon, the heavy armor, the heavy weapon, or whatever? What's there to stop them? And it's because this game is intended to be um, strategic in the sense that you have to pick ahead of time, or make a decision, right? Make a decision of what you're willing to give up in order to gain this benefit. So everything has a cost. So if you're getting the heaviest armor, you're going to spend 3 equipment slots. You're not going to be able to hide. You're also not going to be able to do remove the burning condition from yourself on your own, because you're in a heavy armor. You can't turn off, you can't put out a fire that someone's put on you, right? So there are trade-offs to everything. I mean, everything from a heavy armor, even heavy weapons, they take 2 equipment slots, and you only have 10 equipment slots in the game. And each one of those is super valuable because you can add things that'll help you heal or boost your combat or help in terms, of being strategic or tactical in encountering other enemies, or even just wearing other things like shield or helmet or other armor. So you're giving up something in order to gain an additional benefit. So if you're carrying a heavy weapon, you're spending 2 equipment slots just to carry that. If you're wearing heavy armor, you're spending 3 equipment slots. You're also not able to hide. You're also not able to put out the burning condition, and you can't swim. So you're giving all these things up just to have better defenses when you're fighting enemies. So there's always a trade off. Everything in this game is a trade off. Like you said, magic. You cast a magic spell, but there's a trade off. You're going to have your mental health affected every time you cast a spell, or you're going to have additional drawbacks every time that you use this thing. So
Yeah, or mental
everything in this
scars when
game
you
is like
actually
give and
learn it.
take.
Yeah.
Yeah. So um some of the inspirations that I took from in order to make this game, specifically Arkham Horror, the card game. I love that game. I think that's an amazing game. You got to play it a couple times with me. What do you think of Arkham Horror, the card game?
Well, it was awesome. Arkham Horror. Didn't we make some? Didn't you made some cards for that? Didn't you?
I made
We
an
made like
Iron
a
Maiden
yeah.
scenario that was
That's
based on Iron
right.
Maiden. Yeah,
Yeah, matter of life and death.
Matter of Life and Death. Yep.
Yeah, I was just starting my art journey, and the art that I did for you was so
No, it
bad.
was
But
great. People loved it, dude. I got so much great feedback around the Matter
and
of
that was
Life and Death
before
scenario.
AI, and
Yeah, you were still early in your art journey, but even then, people were like, "Man, your brother did a great job with the art in this scenario,"
but
and
yeah, that game
people
was
loved it.
so cool. I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was so much more fun than like Magic the Gathering, because Magic the Gathering was great when we started, because we started pretty much when it came out. Um, and it just kind of lost its shimmer for me. It just it was too much all at once, and now it's too much of everything and all at once. When I had you tried to get me back into Magic, and like you explained how it all worked now, and with the tournament and what was legal and illegal and tournaments, and then like every 4 months they had a new expansion set with new rules. So like once that came out, the prior rules were null and void, and it's like, man, that's a lot to keep track of. Like, you really got to stay on top of it. And if you like a certain version, then you're kind of stuck in the past, especially if you want to go play in a tournament or whatever. But Arkham Horror, I thought was really cool, especially because it was so dark. You know,
Mhm.
being with the Cthulhu mythos and all that. It just and then there was that Mansions of what was it,
Mansions of Madness.
of Madness. That was cool too.
Yeah, that's a board game.
Yeah,
So Arkham Horror, the card game, for those who aren't familiar, Gio mentioned Magic the Gathering. It's definitely a very different game than Magic the Gathering. Arkham Horror, the card game, is a collaborative card game. It's not like Magic is adversarial. So you're always playing against the other players that are at the table with you. Whereas Arkham Horror, you're all together. It's kind of like D&D in a sense, and I think that's partially why I took a lot from it, is because you all sit at a table and you're all kind of working towards the same goal. Some of you may be playing a certain type of character or whatever that's different than the person next to you, but in the end, you're all still there for the same goal. You're all there working together to achieve or defeat a certain scenario. The thing with Arkham Horror, the card game, is for me, that game represents something very unique. It's a, a card game, but it's also kind of like a board game, but it's also kind of like a role playing game. It's kind of a mix of the three. You build a deck, you pick a investigator, you build a deck
investigator.
around that
Yeah,
investigator's specific card building requirements, and then you play against a scenario and you play with other players in a collaborative way. And so you still have like a party, quote unquote, party of adventurers that are going against a scenario, and you're fighting against the bad guys, and you're all together fighting against that. And you build a character, um, not in the same way that you would in a tabletop role playing game, but you, because you have very specific characters. Like you can't make your own in a sense. Like you're assigned a character and then you're told what the deck building requirements are, but then you build a deck around that, right, based on that character.
yeah,
Which is really interesting and unique. So with Left for the Vultures, because Left for the Vultures is a tabletop role playing game, it's not 100% the same as Arkham Horror, the card game, but I was able to take a few things from it. For example, elite enemies, right? Elite enemies is something that I took from Arkham Horror, the card game, elite enemies have different rules assigned to them because they're special, and not all the same rules apply to them. Also, morale and the single action thing. I mean, Arkham Horror has a 3 action economy, but even though they have a 3 action economy, it in a way I saw my game being very similar with a 1 action economy, because of the way that those actions are played out in the game. So there's a lot of aspects to Arkham Horror, the card game, that I was able to take from to make this game, but it's not just limited to that. Obviously, we've played hundreds of tabletop role playing games, and I was inspired by a lot of them. So I kind of
Yeah.
meshed a
I
bunch of the
definitely
stuff
see,
together.
now that you mentioned the whole card game thing, I definitely see how this has some card game influence, because a lot of tabletop role playing games they suffer from the problem of too many actions, especially at the higher levels, for each character, where you tune out, waiting
Hmm.
for your turn, you tune out. This happens so many times, man, in so many campaigns, especially with D&D. The fighter has 5,000 attacks or
Yeah,
moves or whatever, and then like even during your turn he can act, and it's like, dude, what the heck, man? And you're waiting and waiting, and finally when it's your turn, you're like, oh, what just happened? Because you tuned it out. It happened so many times. I know it's not just with me, because other players ask, oh, what just happened? What did I
yeah,
miss? Like, it happens a lot. And the difference between a role playing game like that and a card game is, with card games, turns don't usually take that long. There's always some kind of limitation
yeah,
that keeps the game moving, so that everybody has enough time to go on their turn, and so that they're paying attention and are focused on what each person is doing. Like in Magic the Gathering, for example, yeah, you can have a huge deck with a ton of mana, so you can cast a million things, but it moves quickly. And at the same time, you're limited by the amount of mana you can tap into to cast a certain number of spells. Once you're tapped out, you're done.
yeah,
There's nothing else you can do, and it moves quick.
yeah. So I took a few elements from Arkham Horror, the card game, but that's not where I finished. I mean, Magic the Gathering definitely had an impact as well. Um, then D&D, of course. D&D is such a big influence no matter what. We bash D&D, like we talk a lot of stuff about it. Um it
It's
has
because we loved it so much,
yeah,
and
D&D
it's a
has its
shame,
ups and downs.
but its downfall kind of, I mean, not complete downfall, but it's slide, its trip, I guess, kind of opened the door for so many other cool games to like gain popularity, like Delta Green gaining popularity now, and all these other games that have come out, like
Mhm.
Shadow Dark and Lancer, and there's just so much that has opened up because people lost faith in D&D.
Yeah, yeah, and there's plenty of aspects of D&D that I really, really liked. That there it brought a lot of memories, even in the most current iteration, or one of the most current iterations, I guess. The 2014 fifth edition or whatever. When I went to all these conventions, I had such a great time, specifically with the Adventures League, and we talked about the epic adventures. Those were really fun. I thought those were interesting. Arkham Horror, the card game, did something very similar with the epics, and it's something that I think I want to do with Left for the Vultures at some point. Is do something like an epic where multiple tables are banding together to fight, something larger. So I created the massive rules, which are not very heavily explored in the early release of the game, but they're there. And I put them there specifically for future proofing because I want to do stuff like that eventually in the future of the game. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, massive rules are like massive creatures that are really large. And being able to damage them, it just takes a lot of effort, and they have very specific rules to them. But what I was talking about is with the Adventurers League in fifth edition D&D had some really cool things with massive creatures and epic games where you would play multiple tables. You'd be playing all these tables are playing the same adventure, but one table is first through fifth level characters, one table's 10 through 15 level characters, another table's 16 through 20th level characters, and they're all doing different parts of the mission, all related to the same thing. So let's say there's an invasion happening in the castle, and all these characters, your 1 through 5 characters are killing goblins that are trying to storm the gates, and your 5 to 10 characters are going under the walls and trying to kill any of the creatures that are trying to build bombs under the walls and trying to stop them from doing that. And then the 16 through 20 characters are fighting the actual dragon that's flying overhead, and they're taking pot shots at it. So all these things are happening at the same time in a convention. And so in fifth edition D&D, these epics were really cool because all these different tables are playing the same adventure and doing all this, and then when the timer runs out, something major happens. So like the dragon then swoops down and attacks the 1 through 5 people, and they may not be able to kill a dragon, from being level 1 through 5 characters, but they can definitely do damage. So they like, maybe if they succeed, they have to do enough damage to kill, um to destroy the mount or whatever. So the dragon maybe is mounted by a death knight, and so the 1 through 5 people have to shoot the mount, the saddle or whatever, to knock the death knight off the dragon. And if they succeed, then the people then in the next section of the adventure, the dragon flies over to the table where the 5 through 10 characters are, and they have to fight the actual death knight, who then falls off the dragon. And if the 1 through 5 people didn't knock it off, then it's a harder time trying to kill this thing. And then the 16 through 20 characters actually are fighting the dragon, and if the other people didn't kill the death knight, now they're fighting the dragon and a death knight and all this stuff. So it's all these things working together and making an impact and helping other people at the other tables, which was really cool. It was just such an interesting way to handle a game, especially for a
Yeah, it's like an
convention.
MMRP. I've been out of video games for a very, very, very long time, but Heroes Unlimited was, like that, where you're in this open world, and you just, hey, you happen to be on at this time, and then you gather a group from the people you see running around, and hey, let's go explore this cave, and you go to the cave or whatever, and there's a dragon. Then another group might see it too, and then you're all attacking, and there's all these different groups attacking it at the same time. And it's something similar to that, I think, this type of massive playing, and it's really different than traditional role playing, and I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I think something like that's really neat. And now, of course, that's rare, so it's not something that I wanted to make a major aspect of my game. So I didn't make it a major aspect, but I do plan on doing that eventually. But the game's launching in like 5 days, and the things that are in the game, I think, really speak to the the aspects of tabletop role playing that have worked for us, and also the things that did not work for us. And I think that we've addressed both aspects of a tabletop role playing game and made a game that addresses these things and is the best of a tabletop role playing game that we definitely have been wanting to play from the very beginning. And I think
Yeah,
we've
I
done it.
made this
I think we've
character
done
that
it.
we're gonna be playing through this weekend and recording, and I'm so excited to run this character. He's so freaking cool. But you guys will see it once we record the video. But man, I'm so excited to play this character. And this game, everything's done for Left for the Vultures. It's ready to go. Digital rewards will go out as pretty much as soon as the campaign ends. Of course, there's a waiting period after campaign ends on Kickstarter for them to verify
Two
everything,
weeks.
which is about 2 weeks before the digital rewards go out. But we're not going to make you wait years and years or anything like that, and uh, we're not gonna uh, waste your time by changing rules and telling you one thing and
Hmm.
then it turns out it's another. It's done, and the best part of it is there's more to come as well, even after this campaign, because Vase and I have been building an entire world, and we've been putting in
Yeah.
things into this lore. There's really cool things that are being left on the table for the next iteration, the next coming, I guess, the next update, which is going to be a supplement. And we have so many things. There's different regions and each one has its lore. Like there's one where there's like a swamp where uh it's bubbling all the time and nobody knows why. It's not hot to the touch, but it's just a bubbling swamp. And
Hmm.
things do not go anywhere near it, but it doesn't seem to harm anything. Nobody knows what it is. And there's all these stories in the nearby towns. Each town has some lore, some story that explains what's causing this. Some have rumors that it's some gigantic creature that's dormant under the mud, under the muck, and it's bubbling as it breeds. Some say that it's like a gateway to another dimension, and there's parts of it coming through, and it's really really neat. There's so many of these little things throughout the entire world. We
Yeah.
have so many that we've come up with.
Yeah,
uh
we've done a lot with the lore. Even I mean, every single breed, and for those who don't know what that is, in our game, a breed is like what a race is, or ancestry, or heritage in other games, right? They call them those things in other games. In our game, we call them breeds. But even with that, right? So every single breed has an extensive lore attached to it. For example, cold bloods. Cold bloods are reptilian creatures. They don't look like a snake man. They don't look like a lizard folk. They're not fully lizard like. They're humanoid. They look human, but they may have a forked tongue. They may have just cold blood. Like their hands may be slightly off, or their skin may be a little scaly.
their
So
eyes.
yeah, their eyes may be slit or whatever, like a lizard or a snake. But in the end, they still look almost human. But the cool thing with cold bloods is, um, the world is set. The setting of the world is, it's always dark. It's called the coming of the eternal night. One day the sun didn't come up, and so now everything is based on moons, on moon sets. So like, people live when the moon is up. It's like the sun being up. It's like a regular day. It's called the moonrise. And then when the moon sets, it's called the moonset. And when the moon sets, it's completely dark because there's no additional natural light. And the overarching religion rings these bells 7 times, and it's called the seventh bell, ringing of the seventh bell. So in every major town or city, you hear the bell ringing when the moon's about to set, and when you hear the seventh bell, that means everyone needs to get indoors because the moon's about to go down and things are going to be really dark, which means all the creatures of the night are going to come out, and it's going to be very dangerous, right? So, with all that said, well, where do these creatures that are cold blooded live? These cold bloods, right? Because they need warmth. They can't naturally warm themselves in their bodies. So I'm like, well, how do I figure that out? Well, the cold bloods, they were the ones who enslaved everybody during the age of chains back in the history of the world. And after everything broke free and they made a pact and everything with the cold bloods, they almost destroyed the entire society of the cold bloods, but they left 9 temples up and running. So these 9 temples are scattered across the world. But what's interesting is that these 9 temples are what provide warmth to the world. So no one can destroy them, because if you destroy one of the 9 temples, you're removing the source of warmth and heat for that area. And so you have to leave them going. And these 9 temples are warded by these cold bloods, and they're an ancient breed. They have these weird, the way they work is not like a natural humanoid, right? They don't think like a normal human or a humanoid. They think almost alien like. So there's all this lore around this one breed, right? And then you have other breeds, like for example, the changelings. Changelings are based on real world lore on changelings, which is not like what D&D does. In D&D, a changeling is just someone who can change shape.
Yeah.
You play changeling in D&D. Oh, today I'm gonna look like you, and tomorrow I'm gonna look like you. Oh, I keep changing shape.
Yeah.
Oh, which is ridiculously powerful. It's ridiculous and obnoxious. We had someone in one of our groups play changeling, and he was just changing into everybody else, and that's just the way it was in fifth edition.
Yeah.
But in real world lore, that's not what a changeling is, right? A changeling is someone who was left behind. Your baby was stolen by a hag or a witch. and a changeling is what was left behind in its place, which is kind of creepy. It's really dark and
And this is the
creepy.
key to this game. It because this game is about stories. And when I play D&D, a lot of the times that I play D&D, people will pick their race or whatever because of the bonuses they were granted. Oh, I'm gonna be a
Yeah.
Lamia because this. And like, dude, explain why is Islamia running around with this group of adventurers? Like,
Hmm.
what is happening here? And they don't think about those kinds of things. This game requires you to think about that and to create that.
Yeah.
And the lore that we've created for the world, um, it it expands the world into something so deep and rich, that allows you to create really meaningful stories. And it's not to say that every single game that you run and that you can't do a casual game with Left for the Vultures, because you can do a pickup, one shot easily or whatever. But if you choose to go even deeper, or to do, I've seen some DMs running D&D campaigns for like 15 years now, ongoing, and they have players coming in and out.
Yeah.
And you can do that with this world because it's so massive. We've come up with so much for it, and it allows you to do that because of all of these details. Everything has an explanation. Everything has a lore. You open the D&D books, how much do they have about the changelings? Like, they have like one paragraph explaining
Yeah.
the history or the background, or whatever about the changeling,
I don't
and
even know what they
they
are
leave it at
in D and
that.
D.
Yeah.
All I know is they're shape changers. That's all I know.
Yeah, with this, I mean, you have some really detailed information that brings this story to life in our
Yeah.
heads when we play it.
A changeling is such a tragic story. If you choose to be a changeling for your character, you're choosing tragedy as your main story to begin with, right? Because the way it works in my game is it's kind of like in the real world, right? Like a changeling is something that was left behind after a hag took a child. But there's more to it than that, right? In this game, hags, they have a cauldron, right? Just like in what you think of with witches, they have a cauldron and boiling stuff, right? But hags in this game, they worship a demon, and demons in this game are always female. Why are they always female? Because these demons long for the beauty of life. They long for the beauty that is the female form in life, and they can't have it. They can't be that. And that's what really upsets them and makes them evil, is because they're jealous of that, because they can never have it. And part of the beauty of women is the beauty of childbirth. And the demons cannot give birth because they don't have a physical form. So what do is they get these hags to worship them, and they create these cauldrons, which are a blasphemous, almost profane version of a womb. It's almost like a mockery of the womb of the woman, right? And so with this cauldron, the hags build this stuff up. They steal a child, they boil it in the womb. Crazy, I know, it's brutal and very, very dark and brutal, right? But in the cauldron, they boil the child and they boil all these other things that they're sacrificing to this demon lord. And then from the cauldron is born the changeling. And so the changeling then is then brought back to the family that the child was stolen from. So when a hag steals a child from a family to sacrifice to their demon mistress, for example, there's one called the Bone Broth Saint. That's one of the demons, the Bone Broth Saint. So if a hag is worshiping the Bone Broth Saint, they will steal a child, put it in a cauldron, boil it to the Bone Broth Saint, and what's left comes out of this cauldron is a changeling, and they bring this changeling baby and put it back with the family, and now it grows up. But this changeling is tainted by the demon, right? So by the demonic blood. And so the changeling causes mischief. It brings misery to the family. It kills. It eats raw meat. There's a bunch of different things that it brings and causes trouble, so that the life of the parents becomes absolute misery from then on, right? Um, but in addition to that, there's still the cauldron, right? After the changeling is born, there's more left in the cauldron. And so when they spill the remaining elements of the cauldron, all the casticides create gremlins. So that's even worse. That's even more tragic, right? So with hags, they spill the remaining elements of the cauldron after a changeling is born, and what's left are gremlin. And gremlins are able, they just spit them out and let them roam in the forest. But some gremlins, the most devious and mischievous ones, the worst ones, are brought in by the hag and turned into their own personal servants to do their bidding and maybe take the next child for the next sacrifice, or maybe do this, that, and the other. But because they were leftovers in the cauldron, these gremlin now have bad luck, and they provide bad luck to everything around them because they're cursed and they're tainted by the demonic taint. And so in this game, there's all these different elements that affect the, the different breeds. I mean, just that's just the changeling and the gremlins, and there's so many others that are in the game that are, they have their own stories that affect how they work.
Yeah, I'm just laughing about the demonic taint. I just had a very disturbing
Hmm.
image in my mind. But anyway,
I agree.
but but yeah, this the Left for the Vultures, the lore part of it, um, because it is so centered on the story, and I think that's what makes every game, every session so memorable. And I think that part of that storytelling is reflected in the stat blocks for the creatures, for the bad guys, you know. So like for example, you get tips on how to run certain creatures or whatever. The uh what was it, not the constructs, but say the, which one was it,
Creations.
where the where the instructions are basically run the creature like it is just completely uh crazy, you know, like there's no rhyme or reason as to why it's
Oh,
targeting a
those are the
certain,
horrors.
the horrors.
Horrors because
Yeah,
they're very alien like, yeah.
yeah, why is it targeting this one character, and all of a sudden, for no reason, at a really odd moment where it could do like a death blow or whatever, or something, it just turns and picks
Stops.
somebody else, you know
Hmm.
why? And at the end of the combat, it should leave the players disturbed as to why this creature was fighting in this way that made no sense. And that kind of thing is what makes this game and the combat in this game so different, because it's not just hack and slash, it's not just claw bite or
Hmm.
I attack 3 damage. It's not like that at all. Because it's tactical, it requires you to really describe your actions during combat.
Yeah.
And it you know, I when I describe this to somebody, they're like, "Oh, but that's just a lot of work to, be describing every move every time." But it's not like that at all. You
No.
actually enjoy it. Like you take some glee in saying, "Hey man, my character, I have this ability that allows me to you just hit me, this ability allows me to, every time you hit me, I can move 15 feet, and then as I move, I have this other ability that boom, I get a free shot on you, so I stab you with my knife as I'm running away,
Yeah.
and I get to this other guy, and I have another ability where whenever I come within 5 feet of another person, I get another, free attack and deal 1 dice 4 damage that
Yeah.
explodes, and then boom, I roll the dice four, I roll four. Now that dice is exploding, so it's a critical hit, and I get to roll another dice four, and I roll another four, so I get to roll yet another one. And now I'm dealing 12 damage to this guy, and I've just slaughtered him with a knife
Yep.
after hitting two other people. And it is so different, it's so
It's so
fun.
satisfying to be
Yes.
able to pull off the thing that your character is built to do. Like there's a discipline, and disciplines are like a group of abilities, right? And it's called the Dance of Vultures, and it's basically like your character likes to gang up on enemies. And so a lot of the abilities have to do with that. Like if you're getting a flanking bonus, you get a higher dice things like that. But also, like, if a character's knocked down, you get to move up to them and get a free attack on them. So you're taking advantage. Like, oh, they're knocked down, I'm gonna run up and take advantage of the fact that they're knocked down and stab them while they're down. And
Oh,
it's
and
just like,
another ability I love is vulgar display of power. When you kill an enemy, you use his power, it costs some ability, and you basically hack this person to bits. Like you chop an
yeah,
arm off or
just
behead them, and you hold up the head and scream, and then that lowers basically it debuffs everybody around you. So you get to describe this kind of stuff during combat, and it's so
yeah.
fun. I mean, it's really, really cool. It's so
It's
different than
really
any other
funny.
role playing game.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a great example. But yeah, with the game, like you were saying, the breeds, the abilities, it's all intended to be far more role play heavy, because the whole point of the game is the story, is
It's
the
cinematic.
arc. Yeah, it's cinematic. It's the arc of your character, whether they succeed or not. Like, you have a vengeance arc, but you may not be able to complete your vengeance arc. You may be, defeated before you do that, but it's still a great story. How your character was brought from this, intended to do their vengeance, and gets defeated. That's still fun. Or they go insane, become a tyrant, become a villain. You can do that. That can happen in this game.
Yeah.
Um,
And the
and
thing that
when
I love also, speaking of vengeance, is that so you have what D&D has become, where basically characters are like superheroes, and they're, especially at the higher levels, you're not going to die, right? But the benefit of that is you get to see this character through their entire story arc, from the lower levels, humble beginnings, to the end when they become the superhero kind of character or whatever.
Mhm.
You have then the opposite that came as a result of all the things that TSR did, or whatever Wizards of the Coast did, which is the OSR, where now people enjoy just creating a character that's gonna die that session, and they're gonna
Yeah,
die, and it's all about how are they gonna die, like the most insane death that this character is gonna have, and that's glorious or whatever, and it's fun. But the balance is having a character that can go through this entire arc through 20 levels or whatever, um it comparing to levels on D&D, and then also have that sense of danger where when you do win a hard fought victory, it means something because you really could have died. And it
yeah.
does happen in this game, but there's not such a randomness to the death where one bad die roll can
It's
take
gonna
out your
kill you.
character that you
Yeah,
just spent so much time and you loved so much, that you've been playing for 10 sessions, and now he's just going to die because he rolled bad or the other
yeah,
guy got lucky. You have vengeance dice that can mitigate that, and it is so well done because it's like in a vengeance movie, where, oh, whatever, Conan, for example. I remember the one scene from the Conan movies with Schwarzenegger that I remember is where the wall is coming down, and he's like holding up the wall for people to get through, and then the other guy comes in, he's gonna hold it. Conan, you get through, and then Conan gets through, and Red Sonja gets through, and then everybody, but the guy that's holding it, he can't hold it, and then it crushes him. But
yeah.
Conan was able to push so hard with this vengeance to hold it up enough to let everybody else through, and then this other guy took over, and he's out of luck, he ends up paying the price. But that kind of thing, or
Yeah.
you're
Heck, the bride from Kill Bill,
from
you
Kill
know,
Bill.
she's constantly up and down. Like, she wins and then she gets defeated, and then she wins again, then she gets defeated. And when she gets defeated, you're like, damn, she's done. She's done for. She's buried alive in a coffin, and she's like this. But then she's like, one finger. I learned this flashback. I learned this one finger technique, but it takes several tries, and it's like boom, boom, boom. And eventually, she starts cracking through the
Yeah.
coffin, and I mean, that's what vengeance dice represent, And the other cool thing that I really like, one thing that started with the early playtest was the how to mitigate the TPK, right? So, like, that's something that in fifth edition D&D, it's a known trope where you're superheroes, you're almost unkillable, right? But the moment one person goes down, that's it.
It's a
It's
chain.
it's it's like a chain reaction where you're like this, and then it just drops, right? And so, How do you come back from that? You can't in fifth edition. You can't. The minute one person goes down, your action economy drops significantly. You don't have as many actions, you don't have as many things, and you're missing something important that is going to help your party defeat this thing. And then you, from there, just everybody starts to drop. With Left for the Vultures, I didn't want that to be a thing. I didn't want it to go into a death spiral in the same way as fifth edition. So I said, you know what? Let's do this. When someone dies in the party, they can choose. Now you can choose to revive yourself and get more vengeance and grit and all that stuff and get an injury, or you can choose to just let your character die. And if you do that, your party gets vengeance. They're like pissed off that your character died. They're like, fuck, Geo died. Let's avenge him. Oh, this thing killed Geo. Let's show him what's really, and so what happens is the minute one player character dies, every player character regains all of their vengeance dice up to full. So if it's a very difficult battle, which if someone's dying, that means it probably was. So you're fighting a Nosferatu or something. Nosferatu kills Geo's character. The rest of the player characters on the party, the minute Geo's character dies, they regain all their vengeance dice. So they could have spent those to deal damage, heal, whatever, and they spent all their vengeance, and then the battle's going really, really poorly. But those vengeance dice are huge. I mean, they're such an important resource. They can really turn the fight around. And for everybody to regain every single vengeance dice, that's like, for me, cinematic. It's like, oh my God, he died. Oh, it's like when Black Widow died or when Captain America died or whatever, like everyone just goes all out just to show we're here for them.
Yeah. And that's I think one of the best parts of the game. I don't think it's the best part of the game. I think the best part of the game is the just the overall cinematic um aspect of the
Storytelling
game, of the
aspect, yeah.
storytelling. Yeah. But one of the best parts is that vengeance, and the vengeance mechanic and how it works all together with that, with another character dying or whatever, and even some of the abilities and how those work and incorporate vengeance into the ability. uh, and I mean, you have to get the book obviously to see what all the abilities are, but it's not like D&D. A lot of the D&D clones, a lot of the games that have come out after D&D, they basically use the same spells and the same whatever. They just change the name, they change, one of the little things about it or whatever. Um, but these abilities are so different. Like I said, there's the vulgar display of power, where you chop up the person, your victim, or you behead them or whatever. The summoning the dead cow. Um, there's a cool spell that I love, which is the ever growing teeth or whatever. You make the people's teeth grow like a rat, basically.
And it
Rats,
punctures their
they're
brain,
yeah. For a
killing
rat,
them.
the teeth always grow, and there are animals that have these tusks also. And if they're in a zoo, the zookeepers have to trim the tusks because they penetrate through their upper lip, and they have a snout. So as it penetrates the upper lip, then it curls and it ends up going into their brain. So this spell works in that way. Your teeth grow and they eventually go and hit your brain. It's crazy, like some really cool stuff that you do not see anywhere else.
Yep.
And that's what adds the flavor to this game, that makes it so different when you're playing, when you're doing combat, where you're not just, I rolled a hit. Oh, let me roll. Oh,
Yeah.
14, I hit. Okay, 4 damage. Like, you actually describe, no, you know what? I'm making your teeth grow, motherfucker. And this round they grow through your lip, and then the next round they're in your eyes, and then the following round they're in your brain, and you're
Even the
describing all
weapons,
of it.
I wanted the weapons all to have their own flavor. And you have
Yes.
like weapons like, for example, the messer, right? The messer sword. So um it, I believe the messer is the one that, like, in German it means knife, but the messer is not a knife. There's In Western culture, a messer is a type of sword that's curved, but it's like a master forged is I think what I put with it, right? So this thing is so well built and so well made that it's not just a standard sword. When you hit and you crit, you're dealing extra critical damage. So your critical damage normally, if you roll a d6 for damage and you roll 6, you roll another d6 and you keep rolling that. But I think the messer is like if you roll 6, you're rolling 2d4 as the critical damage. So you're more likely to double crit, right? So if any of those d4s that you're rolling of those 2d4s, which the chances are 25%, 25%, so you have a really good chance of critting with another one. So you roll a 6, you crit, now you're rolling 2d4. One of those is going to crit, and then you roll 2d4 again. And so it's Master Forge. So it's really a very sharp blade. Or you have something like the
There's one that has like a hook at in the back. I don't remember. It was like an axe or something, and you
mhm,
can basically hook it to somebody's shield and take their shield off or disarm them,
yep.
disarm their weapon. Every weapon is unique, and it you don't need magic items. You don't need magic weapons because
There's that one that you fight with a shield, where like in the Roman times, most Romans, in fact, if you watch the movie Troy, you notice their weapons, they don't have like a guard. It's not as pronounced when you have a sword. Normally, when you look at medieval films, the sword has a hand guard that's very intricate, right, and very
a
wide,
hilt.
and it hooks so that when someone attacks you, they don't cut your fingers off, right? If you're fighting with a sword and they attack with their sword, it hits the guard and it gets caught in that, right? But in a lot of those in a lot of those Roman films, and even in the Roman times, the guard was not as pronounced. It was very small. And the reason for that is because they fought with a shield, and the
It had a
shield
little
had like a
cutout.
curvature on the side.
Yeah,
So you could just swing your sword right through that little curvature. So you're protected with the shield and still are able to stab. So we did that in the game where you can still get your shield bonus even if you're not taking the guard action, which normally is the only way to get a shield bonus to take the guard action. With this one sword, if you have a shield, you get the shield bonus even if you're not taking the guard action, because the implementation of it is you're guarding with your shield and still striking with the sword and blocking. So you get the shield bonus even if you're not taking the guard action. So we every single weapon, we spent time looking into the historical elements of that weapon, what it did, like the flail, the heavy flail, right? It knocks people down. The light flail, the way it worked, if people weren't as trained, like the heavy flail, you need to have more training, so you knock people down because it's heavy or whatever. If you crit with it, the regular flail, you swinging this ball and chain, right? But like the because of the way the momentum is, when you're swinging this ball and chain and you swing, if you miss, it's gonna pull you along with it. So your defense goes down by 2, right? If you crit with it, you knock something down, whoosh, but you're now moved aside, so your defense goes down. And so every single weapon, we thought of it
yeah.
in that way.
Every
We
weapon,
we
every
looked at
armor,
the
and that's a cool
historical.
thing. Where in many games, like what's the difference between three weapons that all do 1 dice 8? Like in
Yeah,
D&D, you have whatever, a battle axe, and then you have a longsword or whatever, and then a spear, and they all do the same damage, but like what's the difference between them? Like who
one
cares?
of
You
my
just take one
biggest
for
things with
whatever.
5e.
Yeah, like you just pick one. I remember I
Yep.
was making my character. I'm like, okay, does it matter which one do you want, an axe or a sword, or who cares?
Yeah.
Especially in a game where the story doesn't really, like, the story and the descriptions, none of that really matters. Like who cares if you're walking? That never comes into play in D&D. Once you pick your weapon, all you ever remember is that it's a dice 6 damage. You don't
Yep.
remember whether it's an axe or a sword. That's all you remember, because then in combat, that's all that matters. You're
E-
rolling a hit and then you roll the dice 6 damage.
Even
And
something as plain as an arming sword, right? So in this game, the arming sword is the most basic sword, and it's just what a regular warrior armed themselves with. It's an arming sword. But even something like that has what's called martial balance, which means that if you're a balanced warrior, that's where you benefit the most from it. So then, how I was like, well, how can I represent the balance, the martial balance from that? And I was like, well, initiative, right? So when your initiative value is 10, which is right in the center, which is balanced, right? The center 10 is balanced in the middle, you regain grit because you're such a balanced warrior that when you're At the most balanced, which is initiative value 10, you regain grit, which grit points are what helps you fuel additional abilities and things like that. So you regain grit when your initiative is 10. So again, every weapon has some kind of cool ability like that. And none of them bog the game down. All of them are intended to be very quick to implement and very easy to implement, where it doesn't slow down your game. You're not looking at charts and tables and being like, oh, well, this weapon does this, and now I have to go and look up this and look up that and look up that. No, no, no. Every weapon in this game is intended to be run very quickly. So if I have, the flail, all right, cool, boom, I roll flail, and then if I roll critical damage, my defense goes down. Cool, no big deal, whatever. If I have the arming sword, okay, I regain grit on initiative 10, and you just keep it moving. So everything is intended to run
Yeah,
very
the focus
quickly.
is on the cinematic aspect of everything in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, the character sheet is very quick to just glance and find what you're looking for. It's very simplified. The creature stat blocks are super simple for a GM. Vase and I were discussing this just the other day because for a GM, man, in some games, let's say you're running a combat of a boss, say a lich, and then the lich is not going to be by itself. You're going to have its minions. In D&D, it's difficult if you have a lich and then like goblins, orcs, and skeletons and zombies. It's so hard to run with all these different creature types because the stat blocks are so complicated. So what you
Mm-hmm.
generally have is the lich and then maybe all zombies, and it's much easier for a GM to run it that way. With this game, the stat blocks are so simplified that you can actually run the Lich with 3 or 4 different creature types, as its minions, and it really does not slow the game down because again, the focus is on the cinematic aspect of it. And part of that when fighting a group of creatures is like, you know, it's not very cinematic when it's all skeletons,
Yeah.
like you want some variety. It makes it so much more interesting.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. So overall, I think people are really going to get a kick out of this game. So far, with the playtests, I've gotten some surveys on the feedback, and everyone's really, really just nonstop praising different aspects of the game, which I'm really happy with because it took a while. I mean, this didn't happen overnight. This was not a game that we just decided, oh, we're going to do this, and then tomorrow we run a Kickstarter. It was not like that at all. This has been 2.5 years of playtest, refining, playtest, more refining. If you look at the original version of this game, it was so different, so different. The initiative system was different, the combat system was different, the weapon and armor system was different. We also had a currency system back then.
yeah.
So everything, I mean, it's just like throughout the playtest period, we've been refining to become to come up with what now the game has become.
Yeah, and I think we've really landed on something really cool, really special. uh I really hope you check it out because I know that you'll enjoy it. I know that this is going to be the most fun you'll ever have playing a role-playing game,
I agree. I
because
agree. I think
that's
so
for
too.
me. And like I said, I'm so excited to play this character that I rolled up last week, man. I just spent a little bit of time before this stream refining, changing a couple of the abilities because I thought about it and I'm like, oh man, wouldn't it be cool because he's a serial killer. And this is the kind of thing that you think about when you're creating a character here. Like it's not just, oh, this is gonna give me the most attack bonuses or whatever. It's like, what's gonna make this a cooler character?
Yeah.
This character is a gremlin who's a serial killer. And when we do the actual adventure,
One shot.
I'll go
Yeah.
more into his background or whatever. But what's going to make more sense for this character, and the abilities that I've changed have made him so cool. And in combat, it's going to reflect his background whenever he's in a fight, whether he's fighting one person or three. Uh, that'll come out, and when we describe it, it's just so exciting for me to
Yeah.
do this because it's just satisfying, man.
I
So
can't wait. Cool, guys. Well, thank you guys for hanging out. As always, we are 5 days away from the launch, so we will be doing a live stream on launch day, just launch party type of thing. and I hope that you guys can join us and hang out during the launch because I'm very excited. I can't wait to see what this does. I have no idea how popular this game is going to be, but I'm hoping it's at least popular enough, where we can get a couple of print runs and go to a few conventions next year and spread the word and spread the game.
Yeah, and build up on that world that for 3 years we've been
Yeah,
compiling all these stories, man, and adventures. We have adventures written, so this isn't a game where, like I said, the game is done, and it's not
yeah,
like you're gonna get the game and have nothing to run, and have just the rules. We have tons of adventures, so when the game releases, you can start playing and playing a
yep.
lot.
And we
So
have
it's
over 100 adventures planned
yeah.
for this game.
So
So,
this is really, really great opportunity to try something new, and if you like it, man, you can keep it going because it's done, and we're gonna work on it more and expand it as much as we can because we love this game. We love the stories that fall within it, and I think you will too.
all right, guys. Thanks again. My name is Vase from Left for the Vultures YouTube channel, lead designer of Left for the Vultures. And with me today was.
I am Geo from the Headless Hammerhead YouTube channel.
Thank you guys very much. We'll talk to y'all real soon.